Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. Katie, I've asked you to if I can read your about section on your LinkedIn profile here. And so we will get into some of your background, and I'm going to ask you to tell us about your experience as a leader here in Roanoke Valley, and also where we can find you and to tell us about your work. And so your about section here on your LinkedIn profile starts off with talent, strategy, leadership. And you say that you're a former career services professional, currently working in economic development, experienced in project and event management from creation to execution, with over 15 years of experience working in higher education. So technically savvy leader with proven skills in relationship building and teamwork. You've demonstrated achievements in identifying and analyzing problems to create innovative solutions. And Katie is adept at working with multiple constituencies to reach mutual agreement and understanding. So I also am curious about your speaking engagements. And so I have a lot to cover with you, Katie. Will you please give us a little bit of background there, kind of leading off from your about section?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. Yes. So I definitely have one of those career journeys that makes sense looking backwards, but never would I have thought as a early career professional that I'd be having my own business and working as a speaker and facilitator and coach. So I started actually in athletics and spent the first portion of my years working as an athletic trainer. So as a healthcare professional, coordinating healthcare for student athletes, and worked primarily at East Carolina University, is where I went to school, and then got my first big girl job at Virginia Tech back in 2006, and worked with women's soccer, softball, and lacrosse throughout my journey there. And then really that's where I kind of developed this love of team, this understanding of teams, watching the dynamics play out of successful competitive teams. And kind of didn't realize the competitive forces that I was around and the strength of leadership that I always was able to see day in and day out in that world. I then pivoted over to career and professional development at Virginia Tech, where I fell in love with really digging in with those students and graduate students on who they were, what they wanted to do, who they wanted to be, what kind of impacts they wanted to make in the world. And really kind of got my first taste of recruitment from the corporate sense. So watching our employers come on campus and recruit our students at Virginia Tech, and really kind of understanding that process. And then pivoted over to economic development, where I worked at the Roanoke Regional Partnership with the fantastic team over there, who was really working on branding this region as a great place to live, work, and play, and figuring out kind of what does that look like, both from an out-of-market standpoint to an in-market standpoint. And that's where I really fell in love with this region. I fell in love with our employers here, our companies here, our quality of life. And that's what kind of prompted me to start my own gig here with Katie Beach Consulting, and really work with regional employers and our regional leaders on making kind of work better, right? Like, we really know that we love our quality of life here. But, right now, we need to make sure that those that are here can also find the job opportunities, the employment opportunities that they desire in our region. And I think we are on absolutely a great upward momentum, and I'm excited to play a small part in kind of working with our businesses and our business leaders here in the community.
Well, so when you say facilitator, can
Sure.
you tell me, based on your experience and what you're telling me now, it sounds like we're bringing people together. You can help me connect with the talent that's here. So you understand the value of why people would want to come here and stay here, live here, work here. But you seem to have an inside track to people who are already here and you want to connect, employers. So if I'm looking for talent in the Roanoke Valley area as a facilitator, how do you help me connect with folks?
Sure. Yeah. So really, I love playing that connector role, but I wouldn't do direct recruiting or
Okay.
connecting, but I can absolutely connect you with those people. So really, I see my facilitator role as more when you're with a group thinking about strategy, when you're thinking about your recruitment strategy, when you're looking at some of your employee retention plans, when you're building out maybe, some of your long-term strategic priorities, or looking at your vision, mission, goals as an institution, as an employer, as an organization, coming in and really facilitating that process for you, and really being able to help. Really, I feel like, most companies have the answers within themselves, right? And so I see my role as coming in and providing that outside perspective and exercises to be able to allow the people within your organization to share their ideas and be able to feel heard and make their organizations great. And so really in that facilitator role, I really see myself being able to go in to companies and organizations and groups, and really bring out what is already there and really expose the greatness that I know these organizations have.
Yeah, okay, so that's huge. And I'm thinking you said you want to help the team or a group uh, look at their own mission and vision and goals, and that this is something that a lot of organizations you work with already have within themselves. Are there certain qualities or types of mission statements that you see right now that are resonating between leaders and talent? What are we looking for in employers these days?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think this is like, if anyone had this magic answer, and if everyone was looking for the same thing, right? Like we could sell that and retire. I think right now, really, since pre-COVID, through COVID, post-COVID, this has been kind of a moving target for talent, right? So, right now we have 5 generations in the workplace, right? And so we know that each generation has their own, values that they're looking for. We do know that from kind of the millennial generation, Generation Z, they really want to work for a cause that they feel strongly. So as an organization, having a strong mission and really living out that mission as an organization is important when you're attracting talent, particularly that younger generational talent. And then also, really, people are starting to kind of reevaluate their value system, right? And so they want a quality of life that they kind of got a taste of, through some of the flexibility and workplace flexibility that most of us had. Not everyone, but by no long shot. But there's really kind of a reevaluation that just happened of workplace priorities and what I would call the talent and the employee priority system. And so we're seeing another little shift right now through the current data, right, of what employees are looking for. But when an organization really understands kind of what their mission is, what their goals are, the roles and responsibilities of the employees, then they're just better positioned to attract the talent that's going to stay there and that can be successful with them.
.com. Elizabeth Walker presents the Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher. Learn from an international professional stand-up comedian what all business people should know. What do comedians do on stage every night? How do we read the room? How do we learn what our audience is connecting with us around? And how can you learn how to do that in your everyday conversations? Build rapport with your customers and employees. For executives and team leaders who speak, if you are in the Roanoke Valley or surrounding area, October 18th starts at 11 a.m. You can reserve your seats right now at the Jefferson Center box office. Pick up your copy of The ROI of LOL. That's the book that Clayton's workshop is centered around. So the co-author is Steve Cody. You can find both Clayton Fletcher and Steve Cody on LinkedIn. So my name's Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and Walker Consulting workshops. Please join me on October 18th and contact me now. I can help you reserve your seat or at the box office at the Jefferson Center in Roanoke, Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, so, and is this something that I can ask you to help me with in like an afternoon? Is this something that I can get you to do with me over a period of time?
Sure. So yes, 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 and yes. So one of the things really with kind of thinking about the three buckets that I really work in is leadership development first and foremost. So we know that there's a lot of people in position where they're they've been really good at the technical skills in their job. They're really good at being an individual contributor and doing their role, and they're now put in position to lead other people, and they're needing to learn some of not only that leadership skills, but also what are these tactics of management, right? Like, how do I do a successful one-on-one meeting? Like what does a feedback conversation look like, right? What does a performance conversation look like? And so really thinking about those skills, and those can definitely be done in a lunch and learn style or in a longer cohort, leadership cohort. And then the second piece being that facilitation. So thinking about strategic planning, thinking about what does this look like long term, coming in and being able to facilitate some of those sessions or some team sessions, team coaching, and really looking at team building activities, whether that's around certain topics, around certain really, custom areas to what you're seeing with your team. Or if it's just a day of like, hey, let's get a retreat and really kind of get to know each other and get to know our roles and our responsibilities. And then the last is both individual and group coaching. So coaching individuals one-on-one, and then also, if group coaching makes sense as well. With my background, I really love working with female leaders. I saw this strength that the female student athletes have. And I really like to bring in kind of some of that empowerment of working with, having been a female in an underrepresented field for a very long time, and the only female on a bus or on a plane with a lot of male dominated professions and professionals. That's definitely a passion area of mine, but really enjoy working with teams of all types and sizes, as when thinking about kind of how to grow and build as a team.
Yeah. Well, and sports analogies almost always work, right, when we're talking about teams. But you said something really interesting though, that when you were telling me about being at Virginia Tech, and I think of Virginia Tech, I immediately pictured you in a very strong female environment. When you say I worked in sports in Virginia Tech, and then immediately I picture you on the field with women, in a locker room with women, in a classroom with women. And then you said that it wasn't uncommon for you to find yourself in a position where you might be the only woman on a bus, for example, or in a room. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So depending on the sport, right, with athletics, like, so even though we have lots of strong female leaders and strong female student athletes, I did find myself working for male coaches a lot of the time. So I might be the only female voice in the coaching room. Prior to coming to Virginia Tech, I worked, like I said, at East Carolina University, and worked with baseball, men's basketball, football, and a lot of times was, the only female in a space, and learning how to kind of use my voice in that sense. Sometimes being the one that has to stand up to, the big big football coach and say like, this guy can't play. Like, yeah. And so learning how to kind of use voices in that sense. And then also to your point, pivoting over to being on an all-female team, and watching the different qualities, as watching these young women grow and develop, and seeing the challenges and the tributes, that they had, and that were created through sport. There's a lot of research out there. I'm actually speaking about this in a couple of days, and have spoken about it before, on the percentage of women in the C-suite globally. So there was a study done that we know there's a really small percentage of females in the C-suite. It's about less than 8% of all C-suite leaders globally are women. And of those, about 94% played sport. And so when you think about what qualities and mindsets that these young women develop throughout their life, I would also venture to say our young men do as well. But being in the underrepresented field, particularly globally, on the C-suite level, I think very important to think about how do we transition some of these mindsets and some of these empowering beliefs over to females that maybe didn't play sport and didn't have that opportunity, but are in the workplace right now, trying to kind of navigate what that looks like, particularly when they're underrepresented in their fields, or in their rooms, or in their meetings, or they're working from home, where they're just not sure how they're building those relationships with those at work.
Today, we want to tell you about a Friend of the Dear Business Coach podcast. If you're thinking about renovating your home or business, check out our friends at Active Wall. Located in Martinsville, Virginia, Active Wall produces high-quality moving, window, wall, and door systems that open up your space. Their innovative product lines include folding units, pivot doors, and gas strut windows that are custom designed to add style, function, and wow factor to residential and commercial settings. Energy efficient, thermally broken aluminum and proprietary hardware are at the core of Active Wall's design process. Their skilled team collaborates closely with architects, designers, and homeowners across the nation to ensure that the aesthetic and functional needs of the end customer are met. The products are made in the USA and they ship nationwide. Active Wall has a showroom and design center in Martinsville that is open by appointment, so you can see and feel the quality of their craftsmanship. As a special for listeners of the Dear Business Coach podcast, you can use the promotional code Elizabeth for 5% off your order. Visit activewall.com/Elizabeth for more information and a free quote. Thank you to Active Wall of Martinsville, Virginia, for being a friend of the Dear Business Coach podcast. Visit activewall.com/Elizabeth to discover how Active Wall can open up your space.
Well, that would be me, right? I don't have athletic experience, and yet I feel that I can relate to. I can still relate to the sports stories. I talk a lot about the Sandlot and use that as an analogy, right, when we're talking about underdog stories and things like that. So that actually reminds me. I wanted to ask you about. You said you didn't. I am going to ask you to tell us where we can see or listen to you or find you speaking here in a minute. So don't let me forget that.
Sure.
But where did you, why did you say you didn't see yourself, in this position, that you never thought you would have your own business or be a facilitator or a speaker? What did you mean by that?
Sure. So, I went to undergraduate as athletic training with a minor in business. I knew I liked athletics, and I knew I liked that business world, but I always thought it would be within college athletics. I just have always seen myself as a person on a team, on behalf of a team. I'm a really strong collaborator. I really enjoy, having a cause and working on behalf of a group of people. And so to be on this kind of solopreneur journey of having your own business and spending a lot of time by myself, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur in that sense. And what I've soon realized and realized here is that all of that background, every client I have becomes part of my team, right? And so I look at how I can connect them and interconnect them, and those critical thinking skills that I developed as an athletic trainer of having to look around a field and say, okay, what could happen if someone got hurt? If worst case scenario happened, like what would we do? How, is that gate open? Like always in that mentality, and has really developed strong critical thinking skills for me when I walk into workplaces and help them with their wicked problems and challenges. And then really those years spent on a bus and on a field and on a sideline and like I say, sitting on an orange Gatorade cooler, but observing those dynamics of a team and seeing like who's got it today, who's not getting along, what does that mean? Now, when I walk into a room, right, like I can still see those dynamics at play. And even though we're not on a soccer field or a softball diamond, you can really kind of see, okay, something's going on with those two, and I don't know what it is, but we need to dig it out. And how do I best do that? And so
I'm so glad I asked that question. You're absolutely right. I need somebody like you to help see things from the outside too, right? Not just not just as a facilitator, you also have insight, it seems like, from patterns and experiences and how to quickly pick up on dynamics in the team, right? That's fascinating. That's
absolutely.
a talent.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
I don't think I only have a couple minutes left with you. So I want to make sure before I forget. Okay, so if I want to hear you speak somewhere, can I do that?
Sure. Yeah. So the best thing is to just connect on LinkedIn. So I try to share anytime I'm speaking on LinkedIn. And we'll share those registrations. And then also, if you wanted to get in contact with me, the best route to do that is either through a LinkedIn message, through my email, or through my website. So Katie Beach Speaks is kind of the best way to go directly to the speaking portion of the website. And then you can kind of navigate around to seeing the coaching and the facilitation and other services and leadership development services that I provide. So that's probably the two best ways to kind of follow along to where I will be and what I'll be doing.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And so, so we have katiebeachspeaks.com and your LinkedIn profile, Katie, Baear Beach, Katie Baear Beach. Did I say that right?
Katie Baear Beach. Yeah. Baer and then Beach. Yes.
Perfect. And so, Katie, I will be posting these links in this video as well as in the show notes. And I look forward to being in a room with you and learning more about how you do this. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it. And thank you for what you're doing, highlighting the regional leaders. There are plenty of fantastic people. And so I'm very honored to be included among them.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you again very soon, I'm sure. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.